everyone, welcome back to week number 4, the final week of our ColourMaze QuiltAlong. All your blocks should be constructed at this point, and this week it's all about laying out the blocks in a beautiful pattern or layout on your design board. The first thing we need to do is sew those remaining 1.5 inch long strips that you might have left onto the top edge of every ColourMaze block. If you're making a placemat or a table runner, you might not add these in, but if you're doing the lap quilt, you're going to want to add these in. So these go on the top edge of every ColourMaze block, and while we're at our machine, we're also going to sew together our outer border strips. So these are the 8 remaining 2.5 inch strips you have left. You're going to sew 2 strips together to create 4 long outer border strips. All of these instructions are on page 5 and 6 of your pattern, so let's get stitching. So we're back in the sewing studio, and I'm here at my design board where I've laid out all my Violet Craft Modern Classics ColourMaze blocks in the order that I find pleasing. So once you have your 1 inch strips sewn to the top edge of each ColourMaze block, lay out your quilt top on the floor or on your design board as this, and you can simply do haphazard like this one. I just simply like the way these blocks look and how they flow from one block to the other. Or you can do it following something like the color wheel, where you go from yellow to green to blue to magenta, etc. Whatever order pleases you. Once you've decided on the layout of your quilt top, go ahead and take those remaining 1 inch strips, and you should have 3 of these 1 inch strips left over. These get sewn to the bottom edge of each of the bottom blocks in each of the 3 rows. And once you do that, we're going to connect these rows by sewing block to block to block, creating 3 vertical rows. And then we're going to connect the rows with our 2.5 inch sashing strips as well to complete the quilt top. So let's get started and finish it off. Now that I've sewn all my blocks together to create 3 vertical rows and sewn those 2.5 inch outer border strips to one side of each of the vertical rows, I'm ready to connect the 3 rows together to complete my final quilt top. But one of the things that happens is when you put 2 rows like this together that are very long in length, one row will undoubtedly creep ahead of the other as you're sewing it. And that will cause those strong horizontal lines that run from block to block to be unparalleled from each other. It'll look skewed or wobbly. So you do need to pin the rows together, and I want to share a trick that I do when I'm pinning these rows together. What I do is a little trick called the sneak, peek, and pin. So what I do is I have my 2 rows together here, ready to be sewn together, right sides together, and I'm going to peel back this top layer. I'm sneaking a peek here, and I'm going to realign these 2 horizontal strips that are going to be right on top of each other. Once I feel that they are right on top of each other, I'll push back the top layer of fabric and I'll pin in place. If you do that at each one of these horizontal lines along the row, that'll reassure that the top row will not creep ahead of the bottom row, and thus when your quilt top goes together, all those strong horizontal lines will be perfectly parallel to each other. So let's do that. So our quilt tops are all done and ready for machine quilting and binding. I even had time today to sew all my scrap strips together into this super cute and fun scrappy rainbow binding that I'm going to use on this particular quilt here. That's it for our ColourMaze QuiltAlong. We hope you'll join us on our next QuiltAlong adventures. Until your next color fix, happy quilting everyone!